It was a quiet Friday night in their cozy suburban home in Austin, Texas. Mike had just finished cleaning up after dinner while his wife, Emma, was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. They had been married for 7 years, and while things weren't perfect, they had a comfortable life. Mike worked as a project manager at a local tech company, and Emma ran a successful online boutique. Their marriage had always been a blend of routine and stability, though lately, something felt off. Around 9 p.m., Emma's phone rang, breaking the comfortable silence. She picked it up, and without saying a word, her expression changed. Mike watched her closely. "Hey, it's him," Emma said awkwardly. "What? Who?" Mike asked, confused by the oddness in her tone. It's just my friend. You know, Tim." Before Mike could say anything, Emma answered the call, her voice shaking slightly as she greeted Tim. Mike didn't think much of it until he overheard Tim's question. "Hey, Emma, are you with your friend tonight like you said?" Mike froze. "Friend? What friend?" He wasn't sure if he was hearing things or if something was seriously wrong. The way Emma nervously tried to laugh it off only deepened his suspicion. She hurriedly ended the call, leaving the room, claiming she needed to handle something. Mike's heart started racing. Who was this friend? And why would Tim think Emma was with someone else? What was really going on? His gut told him something wasn't right, and after Emma's suspicious behavior, he knew he needed to confront her. Later that night, when Emma returned to the living room, Mike couldn't hold it in any longer. "Who was that? And why did Tim think you were with someone tonight? What's going on, Emma?" Emma's face turned pale. Emma stumbled over her words, trying to play it off. "Oh, it's just a misunderstanding, Mike. Tim was just joking. You know how he is." But Mike wasn't buying it. Something in her tone, the way she wouldn't meet his eyes, it didn't add up. "A misunderstanding? Emma, I'm not stupid. Why would he ask you that? What's really going on here?" Emma sighed, clearly feeling cornered, but she wasn't ready to confess just yet. "It's nothing, Mike. Please don't make this into something it's not." But Mike's suspicions only grew. For the rest of the night, an awkward silence settled between them. Emma avoided eye contact, while Mike's mind raced, filled with questions he wasn't ready to ask yet. Over the next few days, Mike found himself obsessing over the call. Emma seemed distant, preoccupied, and every time he tried to talk to her about what happened, she brushed it off or changed the subject. One evening, while Emma was in the shower, Mike did something he never thought he would do. He checked her phone. His hands shook as he scrolled through her messages. Most were normal, the usual conversations with friends and family, but there were a few texts from Tim that made his heart sink. "Tim, last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again." Emma hadn't responded, but the message was enough. Mike's suspicions were confirmed. Something was going on, and it was worse than he thought. Mike couldn't hold back anymore. That night, after Emma got out of the shower, he confronted her with the evidence. "I saw the texts, Emma, from Tim. What the hell is going on?" Emma froze, her face drained of color. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been seeing him behind my back? How long has this been going on?" Mike's voice cracked, a mixture of anger and hurt. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "It's not what you think, Mike." Emma sat down, her hands trembling as she wiped away her tears. It happened a few times, okay? But it didn't mean anything." Mike felt like the ground had fallen out from under him. "A few times? How many, Emma? And how could it not mean anything? You're my wife." Emma's voice cracked as she spoke, her guilt pouring out. "3 times. It happened 3 times, Mike. I don't know why I did it. I was confused, I was lonely. Tim made me feel, I don't know, wanted." Mike felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He could barely process the words. 3 times? When? Where? Emma hesitated, but seeing no way out, she answered, "The first time was when we were on that business trip. Remember? I told you I was meeting an old friend from college. The second was at that party you couldn't go to because of work. And the last was last night. I was going to see him again, Mike. Mike sat in stunned silence, his mind spinning. Emma had been lying to him for months. His wife, the woman he trusted more than anyone, had betrayed him with someone he thought was just a casual friend. How could you do this to me, Emma? To us? We built a life together. Was none of that real to you? Emma was sobbing now, her hands covering her face. I'm so sorry, Mike. I didn't mean for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. His voice was flat, emotionless, drained of everything. You hurt me in the worst way possible. In the days that followed, Mike couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. He was lost in his own home, every room reminding him of what he thought they had and what Emma had taken away. He turned to his best friend, David, for advice. They met up at a bar, a quiet place where Mike could finally pour out his heart. David, she cheated. I don't know what to do. My whole life is falling apart. David didn't sugarcoat it. Mike, man, that's tough. But listen, you can't just let her walk all over you. You deserve better than this. David's advice stuck with Mike. If you stay with her, you're always going to wonder, always going to doubt. Trust is broken, man. And once that's gone, it's hard to get back. You need to think about what you want, Mike. Do you really want to be with someone who betrayed you like that? Mike was torn. Part of him wanted to try to fix things, to cling to the life they had built. But another part of him knew that David was right. Could he ever truly forgive her? Could he ever look at Emma the same way again? Meanwhile, Emma was doing everything she could to save their marriage. She begged Mike to go to couples therapy to work things out. She promised it would never happen again, that she would do anything to regain his trust. I love you, Mike. I know I messed up, but please don't give up on us. Mike wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that they could get through this, that their marriage could survive. But deep down, he wasn't sure if he could ever trust her again. They started going to couples therapy, but every session felt like walking through quicksand. The therapist tried to help them communicate, to rebuild trust, but for Mike, every word felt like a lie. Emma was trying, but the betrayal was always there, lurking in the background. Mike found himself replaying the events in his head over and over again. Every time Emma spoke, all he could think about was Tim and the nights they spent together. Therapy wasn't healing him. It was only making the wound deeper. Just as Mike was beginning to consider moving forward, another bombshell dropped. He received a message from an unknown number. The text read, "You don't know the whole story. Ask her about the other guy." Mike's heart sank. Could there be more? He confronted Emma that night, and after hours of pressing, she broke down. There was someone else before Tim. It was months ago. I swear it didn't mean anything. It was just one time. Mike's world crumbled again. Emma confessed to having slept with a coworker, Kevin, during a work conference in Chicago. Mike hadn't suspected a thing back then. She had come home, acting like nothing had happened. But now, every moment, every lie, came crashing down on him. Mike felt sick to his stomach. How many lies had she told him? How many other secrets were there? You said it was just Tim, Emma. How many more are there? How many times have you betrayed me? Emma sobbed uncontrollably. I swear, Mike, that's it. There's no one else. I swear. That was the final straw for Mike. He couldn't do it anymore. The trust was gone. The love tainted by betrayal. He called his lawyer the next day and started the process of filing for divorce. Emma begged him to reconsider, but Mike had made up his mind. He couldn't stay in a marriage that had been built on lies. The pain was too deep, and every day with her felt like a reminder of her infidelity. The divorce process was long and painful. They fought over everything, the house, the cars, their joint savings. Every meeting with their lawyers was a fresh reminder of how their once happy life had fallen apart. Mike moved into a small apartment across town while Emma stayed in the house. The legal fees were piling up, and the stress of it all was wearing Mike down. His work started to suffer, and his friends noticed that he wasn't himself anymore. As the divorce dragged on, Mike slipped deeper into depression. He found himself drinking more, staying out late, and isolating himself from his friends and family. His apartment felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to the warm home he once shared with Emma. Nights were the worst. He would lie in bed, unable to sleep, his mind replaying every painful moment. David, his closest friend, tried to pull him out of it. He would invite Mike out for drinks or to watch a game, anything to distract him. But Mike wasn't interested. The weight of betrayal and loss consumed him. One night, as Mike sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, he received a call from Katie, Emma's sister. He hadn't spoken to her in months, but the concern in her voice was undeniable. "Mike, I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to check on you." Mike was surprised by her kindness. They hadn't been particularly close during his marriage to Emma, but her reaching out gave him some comfort. For the first time in weeks, he felt like someone genuinely cared. Katie's call became a regular thing. She would check in on Mike every few days, offering support and an ear to listen. During one of their conversations, Katie admitted that she had known about Emma's affair with Tim. "I didn't know how to tell you, Mike," she confessed, her voice heavy with guilt. "I thought it wasn't my place, and I hoped she'd stop. I'm so sorry." Mike was shocked. It hurt to know that Katie had kept such a secret from him, but at the same time, he understood. She was stuck in a difficult situation, torn between loyalty to her sister and doing the right thing. Despite everything, he couldn't bring himself to be angry with her. Katie became Mike's anchor during the darkest days of his divorce. They began meeting for coffee, talking about life and the pain he was going through. Their conversations weren't always about Emma. Sometimes they'd talk about work. Katie was a nurse, and she had plenty of stories to share about her days in the hospital. Other times, they'd reminisce about funny moments from the past, back when things were simpler. Mike began to see Katie in a new light. She was kind, understanding, and patient. The more time they spent together, the more he realized how much he enjoyed her company. One evening, after a long day at work, Mike and Katie met for dinner. It had been months since his divorce had been finalized, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace. As they talked and laughed, something shifted between them. There was a moment of silence, a glance that lingered just a little too long, and suddenly, they both knew that things were different now. Neither of them said anything, but the air between them was thick with unspoken feelings. Mike felt confused. Was he falling for his ex-wife's sister? A few days later, Katie invited Mike over to her place for dinner. It was supposed to be just a casual evening, but the tension from their last encounter lingered. After dinner, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Katie leaned in closer, resting her head on Mike's shoulder. His heart raced. He knew this was a line they shouldn't cross, but it felt so natural. Before he could stop himself, he turned to face her, and in that moment, their lips met. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, but it quickly deepened, the months of unspoken emotions finally bursting to the surface. The next morning, Mike woke up in a daze. What had he done? He had kissed Katie, his ex-wife's sister. He felt a mixture of guilt and confusion. Was this wrong? It didn't feel wrong, but it was complicated. Katie called him later that day. "I'm sorry if that kiss made things awkward," she said, her voice full of concern. "I don't want to ruin our friendship, Mike." But Mike couldn't deny his feelings anymore. "Katie, I've been thinking about you a lot. I don't know what this is, but I don't want to ignore it." Katie was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about you too. Let's just take things slow, okay? We don't have to rush into anything." Despite their mutual feelings, Mike couldn't shake the guilt. Every time he saw Katie, he thought of Emma. Would Emma hate him for this? Would she see this as the ultimate betrayal? Katie understood his hesitation. "Mike, you're allowed to be happy again. Emma and you are done." She moved on. "You deserve to move on too." Mike knew she was right, but it didn't make it easier. Still, he couldn't deny that being with Katie felt right, even if the situation was complicated. Not everyone was as understanding. When word got out that Mike was dating his ex-wife's sister, some friends and family members had strong reactions. Emma was furious when she found out. "How could you do this to me?" Emma yelled when she confronted him one day. Of all the people in the world, You choose my sister? Mike tried to explain. I didn't plan this, Emma. It just happened. We didn't mean to hurt you. But Emma wouldn't hear it. You're a coward, Mike. And you're pathetic, Katie. I can't believe you both would betray me like this. Emma's reaction caused a rift in the family. Katie's relationship with her sister was strained, and she found herself torn between her feelings for Mike and her loyalty to Emma. Their parents tried to stay neutral, but it was clear they were uncomfortable with the situation. I love you, Katie, but this is too much, their mother said during a tense family dinner. You have to understand why Emma is so hurt. Katie defended herself. I didn't plan this, Mom. It just happened. I can't help how I feel. The family was divided, and for a while it seemed like nothing would ever be the same again. As the drama unfolded, Mike began to have second thoughts. Was it worth it? Was being with Katie worth the pain it was causing everyone else? Katie could sense his hesitation. If you don't want this, Mike, I understand. I don't want to make your life harder. But Mike didn't want to lose her. Despite everything, he knew his feelings for Katie were real. I don't want to end this, Katie. I just don't know how to make this work without hurting everyone. Katie took his hand. We'll figure it out together. We just need to be patient. Mike and Katie decided to take a break from their families, giving everyone time to adjust. They focused on their relationship, taking things slowly and trying to build a life together outside of the chaos. They spent weekends hiking, going to art galleries, and enjoying quiet dinners at home. For the first time in years, Mike felt like he had found peace. Katie was his rock, and even though things were complicated, he was happy. Meanwhile, Emma had started dating someone new, a coworker named Jason. Their relationship moved quickly, and within a few months, Emma announced that they were moving in together. Mike wasn't surprised. Emma had always been the type to jump into new relationships without looking back. But hearing about her new life still stung. It was a reminder of how quickly things had changed between them. Katie reassured him. You don't owe her anything anymore, Mike. She's moved on. You have every right to move on too. As the months went by, Mike and Katie's relationship deepened. They had weathered the storm of family drama, and though things were still tense with Emma, they had found their rhythm as a couple. One evening, while they were walking through the park where they had shared their first kiss, Mike turned to Katie with a serious expression. I know this has been complicated, and I know we've faced a lot of challenges, but I also know that I love you, Katie. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Katie's eyes filled with tears as Mike got down on one knee. Will you marry me? Katie didn't hesitate. Yes, Mike. Yes, I'll marry you. It was a quiet, intimate proposal, just the two of them in the park under the stars. They didn't need a grand gesture or a big crowd. For them, the moment was perfect. It was a new beginning, a chance to start fresh after everything they had been through. Telling their families about the engagement was the next challenge. They both knew it would be difficult, especially with Emma still harboring resentment. When they told Katie's parents, her mother was cautiously supportive. I just hope this doesn't make things worse with Emma, she said. But if this is what makes you happy, we'll support you. Emma, however, was less understanding when she found out. You're marrying her? Are you serious, Mike? She fumed. You've officially lost it. After a long confrontation with Mike, Emma made a drastic decision. She cut off all communication with both Mike and Katie. She wanted nothing to do with them, and for her own sanity, she decided to move away. Emma and Jason relocated to another city, far from the tension and drama that had consumed her life. Mike was saddened by how it had all turned out, but he understood that Emma needed to move on, just as he had. Months later, Mike and Katie had a small, intimate wedding with just a handful of close friends and family. The drama with Emma still lingered, but they had learned to live with it. Mike and Katie's wedding was a quiet, private affair, held in a charming little garden in the countryside. Only a few close friends and family attended. David was Mike's best man, while Katie's childhood friend, Sarah, stood by her side as her maid of honor. There were no grand speeches or extravagant celebrations, just love and serenity in the air. As Mike stood at the altar, watching Katie walk toward him in her simple white gown, he felt a calmness wash over him. After everything they'd been through, The betrayal, the pain, the drama. They had finally found peace in each other. After their wedding, Mike and Katie went on a small, low-key honeymoon in the mountains. They rented a cabin far away from the hustle and bustle of the city, where they could spend time reconnecting and enjoying nature. For the first time in years, Mike felt truly at ease. They spent their days hiking, exploring nearby trails, and sipping coffee while watching the sunrise over the mountains. In the evenings, they'd sit by the fireplace, talking about their future and making plans for the life they were building together. Though they were happy, there was still the matter of trust. Mike couldn't shake the remnants of his past trauma. Emma's betrayal still haunted him at times. He was afraid to fully trust again, despite how much he loved Katie. Katie, however, was patient. She reassured him every time doubt crept into his mind. "I'm not her, Mike," she would say gently. "I'm here for you, and I always will be." With time, Mike began to heal. He realized that Katie had never given him any reason to doubt her. The wounds Emma had left were deep, but with Katie by his side, they slowly began to close. Months after their honeymoon, just when life had settled into a peaceful routine, Emma unexpectedly returned to town. Mike learned about her arrival through mutual friends. She had broken up with Jason and was living alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. At first, Mike didn't know how to feel. He had moved on, married Katie, and was living a new life. But the idea of Emma being back stirred something within him, memories he had tried to bury long ago. It wasn't long before Emma reached out. One day, Mike received a message from her asking to meet for coffee. Katie encouraged him to go, sensing that this was something Mike needed to do for closure. When they finally sat down face to face in a quiet cafe, Emma seemed different, humbled, regretful. "Mike, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I made a lot of mistakes and I hurt you. I've had a lot of time to think, and I realize now how wrong I was." Mike listened in silence. A part of him had longed to hear these words for years, but now, sitting across from her, he realized that he no longer needed them. He had moved on. Mike looked at Emma and took a deep breath. "I forgive you, Emma, for everything, but I've moved on and so should you." Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you're happy now. Katie's a good person. You deserve someone like her." The conversation ended on a peaceful note, and as Mike walked away, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had finally let go of the anger and hurt that had once consumed him. With Emma's chapter officially closed, Mike and Katie focused on their future. A year into their marriage, they began talking about starting a family. It wasn't long before Katie became pregnant, and they were overjoyed at the news. As they prepared for the arrival of their child, Mike couldn't help but reflect on how much his life had changed in just a few years. He had gone from a broken, betrayed man to someone who had rebuilt his life from the ground up. Now, he was on the verge of becoming a father. The day their daughter was born was the happiest day of Mike's life. Holding his baby girl in his arms, he felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. The past no longer mattered. All that mattered now was the future he was building with Katie and their child. As they sat together in the hospital room, Katie looked at Mike with a smile. "We made it, didn't we?" Mike nodded, tears of happiness in his eyes. "Yeah, we did. We really did." In that moment, he knew that despite all the pain and unexpected twists, life had led him exactly where he was meant to be. A new beginning had dawned, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a bright future.